Global Heavy, no Overseas Skipper. So as close as we're going to get probably to mirrored lineups and mirrored bans in the two decks that differed the most. So pretty straight up series of Hearthstone. But these types of decks can be quite explosive and volatile, honestly.
Very much so.
Mage and Rogue operating with a lot of resources outside the deck. We've seen the mirror for Demon Hunter and how swingy that one can be and how fast it can go. So I'm going to start things off with Demon Hunter for ETC and the Tempo Mage for lnguagehackr. And we kind of talked about this matchup earlier and how, it's we've always said that it's Demon Hunter favored, but it feels like it's getting closer as players are understanding the matchup more from the Tempo Mage's side. And lnguagehackr with a decent start, being on the coin. So I'm a fan.
All right, well, let's get into it here as lnguagehackr starts off with a nice opening hand and ETC. Well, at least he's got great turn 6 going for him. Turns 2 and 3 is actually not too bad. Chaos Strike and the defeated Panthera.
Yeah.
lnguagehackr, by the way, between sets, TJ was subtweeting you a little bit, saying that he's been trying to limit himself to 1 clap per set, which is kind of funny that, I agree with the sentiment that if you want to clap, just clap. You don't have to limit yourself to 1 clap. That's for the people who want to tune in for the clapping. You gotta give them what they want.
Hey. I never said clap less. Never said it. Not once. Never said clap less.
That's true. You didn't say that.
Never said that I hate the clapping. In fact, me and you love the clapping. We clap ourselves sometimes. We play up the claps. We are all for clapping. We're pro clap here in America's Grandmasters. I said in the past, he's justified his claps because his opponent has had outrageous RNG or drew the perfect card off the top. That was the only way they could lose the game. He justified that last week in regards to losing to Pain Warrior with the anti-warrior strategy. And then the next week says that he's allowed to clap whenever his opponent has a good draw. So I just don't like the difference in sentiment, the contradicting statements. If he had just said originally, I'm just gonna clap whenever I want. My opponent has a decent turn, I'm gonna clap. I'm allowed to do that. Cool, I love it. I'm entertained by it. It fuels me. Don't like the contradiction. That's it.
Fair enough.
In fact, I'm gonna start clapping. Randomly, because that's my prerogative.
Got it. You are a puzzle box of clapping, TJ. You just don't know when it's going to hit, and you'll clap randomly, and it'll be really impactful no matter what.
Yeah.
The average clap is powerful, right? All right, enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on here as those turn 2 and 3, as we talked about. Not really particularly powerful for ETC, but now that we have Blade Dance and the Shard Shatter Mystics, now we're cooking with gas here.
Yeah. That should be played in one place. There you go. You found it.
Like
I was a little worried about the original placement of that arrow, but happy where it ended up.
Oh yeah, very much so. And I do like the hold on elemental allies here. I think that's going to be important later on. lnguagehackr finds Ray of Frost. I guess he's trying to think about if there's any reason to not just go for a Raz Frost Whisper here. I don't think there's many reasons to not do it, and he can just pretty much win the board and force ETC. The debate could be that if he wants to keep 3 versus 4 minions on the board to stop Blade Dance from having maximum impact. And doesn't end up opting for having 4. Totally reasonable.
Yeah. And I like these trades. Like you said, 4 minions on the board and just kind of making it awkward. Also, you know, Language Hacker on the coin threw away, had an early curve and threw away Mana Cycle in the opening. I feel like a lot of players can get trapped into this situation where they're like, oh my gosh, I want to keep all of these things because they're all so good. But Mana Cycle would not have gone well with his hand. In this situation, he was incentivized with Lab Partner Start to kind of play on curve and, you know, look for Cram Session to keep playing on curve. You know, he's going to slow down here a little bit, but he does have some ways to fight back here. He's got Deep Freeze, but that's still a ways away, and we've found that you can't rely on Deep Freeze in this matchup because sometimes it just comes out a turn too late unless you have early game tempo. But it is one of the better cards.
Yeah, Chinvala here is perfectly fine because he can summon one of them through the elemental allies.
Yep. It's just super awkward there because he wanted to play the elemental allies. Wait a second. Wait. If he wants to play a Mana Giant next turn, why don't you go Sorcerer? No, you can't do that because then you don't get the 5/5. Yeah, it's just super awkward, right? He had to make the decision there whether or not to play Elemental Allies and get the Elemental Tick or summon a 5/5. And that's hard to think about what's important because if you play the Elemental Allies first, it also means that you're essentially locking yourself into Mana Giant next turn because you gave up a 5/5 in order to get one progress on Elemental Allies. So just a kind of a tough turn that almost aligned incredibly well, but just ends up being a little bit inefficient. I think I agree with the stance that Language Hacker took there of I'd rather have a 5/5 and I can still find elementals in order to activate these Elemental Allies, but for now I need to worry about the board. I think that stance is better than no 5/5. Mana Giant next turn. Draw 3 spells from my deck. High roll the rest of the game. This strategy is better.
Yeah, I think it's overall better. ETC trying to find a stabilization point. A Local Dan finds all playable cards this turn, and I think the Soul Shard Mystic is definitely going to come out. Doesn't have enough room to squeeze in Pen Flinger in a reasonable clip, so ends up passing here. Now Language Hacker, a little bit squeezed of resources at the moment, but shouldn't be too big of an issue once he starts getting a little bit of his card draw going. However, for now, that does mean that his turn's a little bit tricky. You could start off with Wand Maker, or you can just play the Mana Giant, and I think both have arguments for it. Like, you generally want to play Mana Giant for a lot cheaper. Like, you totally... It is definitely the best minion to play this turn. The question is, are you, like, not opening yourself up to potential bigger swings later on? Because if Mana Giant gets cheaper and you find a way to, say, find Conjurer's Calling, you could play it in the same exact turn. And those are the turns that Demon Hunter, I think, struggles with the most, because Demon Hunter doesn't have hard removal. You have AoE removal through Late Dance. Another argument is that Language Hacker has Elemental Allies, and he doesn't have a second Elemental guaranteed at the moment.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something here. So,
no.
Yeah, he's hoping that he can find a way to activate that or just get more resources.
It's just... everything is so close to being great. Like, he's been like one card, one mana off from maybe like a potential blowout if he could have gotten that Elemental Allies down, or, you know, one card off if like his next card's an Elemental and he could have planned around Elemental Allies better, that kind of thing. But ETC does have to respect the Mana Giant, and that's one reason why you can play this, because if he doesn't respect his Conjurer's Calling comes out, everything could be negated, Walking Fountain, or Tyrion, or any of that comes down. But it does seem like ETC has, you know, the efficient way to rid the board of these two minions while still pushing damage. He goes Twin Slice at 6 attack, gets to Blade Dance, fills up his mana nicely, and gets to push the 9. And Language Hacker essentially has to draw an elemental now. And draw these spells from his deck. And to try and find something else. Steward of Scrolls is an elemental from Primordial Studies. Doesn't hit it.
Nope. Maybe Wand Maker or the Dragon generate off of Azure Explorer, but Azure Explorer doesn't really offer you cheaper dragons.
Ooh.
So
Taunt. These mirror images are no match for the Penflinger, though. Is there an 8-mana dragon that you'd want to play next turn, or is Asherman Solarian being on board and potentially drawing Solarian Prime, if it gets killed off, higher percentage out? I think that's Solarian Prime.
pretty much it, yeah. I mean, right now ETC might be a little bit afraid, but I mean, he just picked up the Adraki Warblade and should be okay soon. He does have this Penflinger to clear.
Hey, loser!
Soul Shard or, ooh, double jump? I guess might as well get value off of it because you can use it now. You can also silence.
Oh, the soup magic. Oh, no.
Yeah, this was really, really clean.
Solarian Prime, why?
Wow. I mean, at this point, this is full on ETC's world, and Language Hacker's just living in it right now. Barely. For maybe one more turn. Deep Freeze, hopefully, can help bail him out. And introduce some complications. This is the last real chance here for Language Hacker, unless we see another card that can change that. Okay. So the issue is you have to Deep Freeze the face because you have to stop the hero attack, but then your opponent puts you down to 3. And you might just die to Kane anyways, or a Penflinger.
Yep.
What to do? What to do?
So I guess Language Hacker can debate that. Another thing you could do is Azure Explorer and double Ray of Frost and just like try to greed the Deep Freeze a little bit, but I think that's just more meaningful development. I don't really see a world where he can make that comeback versus keeping his opponent frozen every single turn, which I think is big.
Yeah. Just, he knows Penflinger's in hand, and he knows that it doesn't take a combination of spells. Like, he just dies to Twin Slice, right? Oh, not dead here unless there's 2 free spells picked up here, which from the Skull's Gul'dan, which I guess is not that unlikely.
Alas, poor warlock.
Blade Dance, yep. Twin Slice, yep.
Oh,
That'll do
geez,
it.
yeah, Blade Dance and the Marrow Slicer as well. Oh my gosh.
Flinging
And
pens.
that's going to do it. Language Hacker concedes. ETC wins Demon Hunter versus that Mage, and that's going to do it for game number 1. And ETC off to a good start. Remember, these lineups are very similar in terms of their lineup, so every single win that you can get is pretty significant. However, you know, we do see that there's a lot of games still. A lot of these matchups are pretty close. They're not super one-sided one way or the other. They have, 4 or 5% difference. in terms of the data out there. So we'll see if they're able to get that advantage and secure it. For now, we're going to take a few minutes to give ourselves a break. And when we come back, we're going to see if ETC can finish off Language Hacker and potentially keep that Cinderella dream alive in his last season as a Grandmaster.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network. T-Mobile.
I don't know any, I think.
What do you call an old snowman? Water.
You know the German knock-knock joke? Knock knock. Who's there? We will ask the questions.
No, I'm not a joke guy.
What is curved, yellow, but not a banana? Secretly a banana.
There's only one joke I can think of. Yeah, TJ, what was first? The egg or the chicken?
Chicken.
Chuck Norris.
What is this, 2008? Yes.
Welcome back, everyone, to Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas region. We're currently in the middle of a series between ETC and Language Hacker. The winner of this will get to challenge No Hands Gamer for that opportunity to move into the Championship Sunday opportunity. And then we'll have our relegation match with Nalgidon versus Just Sand. So that's currently what's on the docket. Taking a look at how everything has transpired for those of you who are just tuning in, that Demon Hunter went the way of ETC to start things off, and the Mage just kind of struggled a little bit with resources, something that we don't usually get to see, but every now and then it does, and that does seem to be when Mage is at its worst, when it can't really climb back because it's only got a couple of options. Mage usually thrives off of having like a ton of different ways that you can address the board state.
Yeah, it's can sometimes be tough. Oh, this I feel like all of this mirrored lineup across the board, as far as archetypes go, and I feel like every matchup is like so difficult to call. This is one of the ones that's like the easiest, right? And then again, like popular opinion is even starting to change about the deck, at least not towards the favor of the Temple Mage, but at least more in favor of it than it was in the past, where the matchup felt nearly unwinnable. But everything else is just so difficult. And you talked about how every win in the series feels like it counts so much, because when you break it down, it's because the decks are so similar and the matchups are so close that if you can snag a win at any point in the series, it just feels like you're at such a big advantage. Your opponent's on the back foot. We're going to go into this one, though. lnguagehackr should be favored, at least on paper, but doesn't always, work out that way. Not the best opening hand either. Double Twin Slice Gladebound Adept. Looking for some early game minions to try and challenge and get that recurring damage in. Well, that is a lot of damage in hand. So that's one thing that you could do, is just, straight up kill them before they even have a chance to react. Who cares about minions?
Yeah, just get them.
There you go. Spirit Jailer.
That's all that's really important here. lnguagehackr is starting off with the Spirit Jailer. Nice draw and pick up on one. ETC, nothing really else to do here. So the amount of pressure that you can really apply early here against the Mage while they're still taking time to set up is pretty crucial. But yeah, we've talked about this kind of dynamic where Chenvala hits the board and Demon Hunter has to clear it. If they can't clear it, they're in trouble. So you're not super happy to have to use a Twin Slice just for one target here instead of pushing damage, but can't leave that Chenvala up. It's way too threatening.
Yeah, I mean, I always fall into this trap where I super greed my Twin Slice and are like, this is the craziest card ever. But if you think about it, it's you're trading essentially a 2-mana card for a 3-mana card. It's 1-for-1, and you keep tempo when you have to kill like a 5 health minion with Twin Slice, Second Slice hero power.
Yeah.
But it's just straight up removal. You do take that 2 damage in the process, but I'll take that trade. Because maybe this Spirit Jailer is going to make up for that damage and net you a little bit more.
Yeah, there is an argument to be made that lnguagehackr has Blade Dance, and therefore can, play Wadmaker and Spirit Jailer. That's like, oh, ETC summons a 5/5. You're like, okay, well, I can Blade Dance clear that. The issue is that by doing that, then you've already committed to Blade Dance to effectively one card effect, and you don't really have Blade Dance to answer, say, the big mana giant turns, which can be even more impactful.
Yeah.
So I do like it. And you still have another Twin Slice. No need to be too crazy.
Yeah, the benefit of having 2 in the opening hand. You always have a second. Whew. All right, so we're starting to piece together some stuff here, but no Sorcerer Apprentice to kind of tie all this together. These cram sessions with no spell power minions, not really drawing cards quick enough to make a huge impact. There might have to be something a little bit far-fetched here, like a Cone of Cold and a Ray of Frost, just to spend some mana and stop at least the damage that you're taking from minions.
I wonder.
Yeah. I guess that's okay. I mean, Right now, we have a pretty straightforward game plan, which is just keep this Mana Giant, you start discounting the Mana Giant as cheap as possible. Wow. Skull of Gul'dan on a coin turn. Language Hacker has to first evaluate if that's bait or not. But it's rarely the case. When you have such an advantage or an opportunity to get a big advantage from the Skull discounting cards, you'd want to take it, and you still get developed behind it too. I actually don't think it's bad an idea to play the Mana Theater Panthera here just for tempo, because you do have other ways to generate cards through the Skull of Gul'dan and Wand Maker, so hand size does become a little bit trickier. But it could be some time before we do see the second Skull if, say, Language Hacker picks up another expensive card.
Yeah.
You don't pick the ones.
Wouldn't it be sick if ETC just started clapping when he saw the skull off the top?
Grows short.
He's been more relaxed. He has shown more personality. I don't think we're up till that level of showmanship from ETC just yet. He's gonna retire and then he's gonna requalify and come back and he's just gonna be like the bad boy of Hearthstone. You watch.
TJ, as a viewer, I love watching people's emotions. It makes the game super interesting to watch. Frost Whisperer hits the board, and Language Hacker does have ways to answer it.
Yeah, it's got a few. It's one of those times where you just have so many resources. It's just, how efficient can you get?
Twin
Puts
Slice
puts
and
Gladebound, puts the
Gladebound
most.
Adept.
Yeah. Still put some good amount of power on the board. Gladebound Adept can be the toughest card to use because the damage is split. It doesn't necessarily go all face. So if you can use it cleanly, it's usually a good idea to do so. Wasn't really anything that he could do there to help get this second skull and outcast. Shouldn't be too hard anyway. It's just he has a lot of situational cards in between. So spend your mana. Time for potential payoff here for ETC. Woo. Hits a Conjurer's Calling, but doesn't have enough mana to use that with the Mana Giant this turn. He has enough cards to make this Mana Giant free, but won't be able to capitalize on it. And draw some cards here. Well, not here, but next turn with Grim Session. It's Spellpower Minion Sticks, and it's going to play out this Mana Giant. Not an all-in push, but it feels close to it just because of the type of resources that ETC has in his hand at the moment.
Yeah. All right, well, that Mana Giant hit the board, and Language Hacker can respond through the Mystic. Can we...
I grow impatient.
Can we find a way to deal with this Giant and the Sorcerer's Apprentice? Does it involve Blade Dance of any kind? So Penflinger, Second Slice,
Demons?
Penflinger, Blade Dance,
Demons.
Shard Shatter Mystic. Oh, you Shard Shatter Mystic.
Do you need to Blade Dance?
Oh yeah.
You can Shard Shatter Mystic, Penflinger, Hero Power.
Right.
The Penflinger has done his job. It allowed me to hold on to a Blade Dance and deal with the Mana Giant, so that seems pretty good to me.
Well done.
Yeah.
Nice spot by Language Hacker.
And defeated Panthera as well. Nicely executed. And that was the push from ETC, so now Language Hacker can take a step back and take the approach of, all right, time to start pushing damage.
Does want to kill that Penflinger and ends up going for the Mirror Image as a stability point. Having seen the Shard Shatter Mystic already makes him more confident to extend in this way. Okay. Now there's some real action going on here with the Shard Shredder, the Soul Shard Lapidary, excuse me, coming into the hand. I do think that there is value in using this Blade Dance, and I think that's because he gets to push damage a lot of the time, and also he's starting to get Skull Gul'dan into position. So I would actually not mind the Marrow Slicer, Blade Dance, Skull, like get ready for a Skull next turn. And if something survive, like if the taunt survives, just consume that.
Yeah, and if ETC, you saw his last turn, it was incredibly weak. If he goes big, what's it going to be with a Mana Giant, a Conjurer's Calling? If you're building up a big enough board and pushing big enough damage, you won't even necessarily have to worry about that because you're playing Skull with a ton of damage already on board and a ton of damage to follow up. So. Yeah, I do like that. Get the Skull in position and start piecing together some more damage.
ATC finds more stuff that he's already been playing. Mirror Image, Cram Session. Ice Spear helps stall, but like the big picture is how does ETC stop an offense from Demon Hunter besides just stalling with the Ice Barrier? This is definitely a situation where ETC does not feel comfortable with. And it feels like it's around this number always. They have a weapon, you're at 15, you're like, I'm going to die. Oh, Conjurer's Calling?
Rips the Conjurer's Calling!
Okay, Terralion, no Walking Fountain. I think that's kind of what Language Hacker was hoping to avoid at all costs, but that's still a really big threat. Soul Fragment is actually a good pickup for Language Hacker as long as he still has Soul Fragments to consume. 4 plus 8 is 12, so a little bit off. And if I'm Language Hacker, I am strongly considering going all in here. Oh, he's just going to rip the Skull of Gul'dan. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you're necessarily worried about... As long as you're alive, I think it's fine. There are some things that kill you, but... I mean, maybe Language Hacker's scared to clap now because of my anti-clapping wrath. But... like that felt like a moment where he saw a weak turn.
Oh, he clapped. ETC clapped.
Did he? Oh my gosh. See, he saw a weak turn, and so he felt fine to go with Blade Dance to outcast the Skull and set up for a really good position, right? And then ETC just rips the 2 cards off the top that are the only punish to the play that Language Hacker made. So that should be in line with the Language Hacker clapping policy.
Policy. Yeah, you're right. Conjurer's Calling.
No taunt! He still wins. Oh no, Ice Barrier!
Ice Barrier to... So he puts him at 13, and Soul Shard Lapidary plus like any combination of Kane and Gladebound Adept is only... Oh, it is 12. It's 12, right? So it's just 1 off?
11, right? 11?
You're correct. Yeah, sorry. I for some reason counted Gladebound as another 5 because you could hero power, but that's not the case.
Demons.
So, funny enough, had Language Hacker swung previously with his Marrow Slicer and not try to optimize his life total by healing, he would have had enough to just kill ETC right now. He could just attack and Gladebound Adept and just like not even worry about anything else.
Yeah.
But because Gladebound Adept only deals 4 damage, and the fact that there's an Ice Barrier, Language Hacker has to acknowledge his board state.
Yeah, but I can't fault Language Hacker for the play last turn because he did cut off a potential lethal out from the second half of Conjurer's Calling by healing up with Alakir. Grom, I think, would have killed him anyway, but by cutting off Alakir. And what are the odds that that one of the 2 randomly generated spells in the hand
No.
is...
Okay, but he's at 25?
No, he's dead. Yeah,
Oh,
he
he's
had
dead.
exactly
Oh,
25
yeah.
on... He had 26 on the board, actually.
Wow.
Oh, man.
What a turn of events. ETC in his first playoffs. Took him 4 seasons to get here and is 1 win away from sending one of the top players in Division A home, or everybody's home. But, Language Hacker will be eliminated with this loss, and ETC will advance through to play No Hands Gamer, which is not exactly the kind of path that we foresaw, but like at the same time, ETC has been the underdog for quite some time now, and it seems kind of fun to see like the underdog make that miracle run. All he needs to do is get this last one with Secret Rogue. How hard could that be, TJ?
How hard could it be? It could be pretty hard. Even when you win, sometimes you feel like you had to work really hard to get that win. But Language Hacker kind of just has to shake that one off, because I don't think that Language Hacker did anything wrong that game, right? I think that looking at the state of the game, looking at ETC's plays, yeah, he just makes the lines that win in the game so much % of the time. It just so happened that, sometimes you get rewarded off the top of your deck with the Mana Giant and Conjurer's Calling, and then you can't deal with it. And then they have the Ice Barrier to block the lethal damage that you had set up on the previous turn and played around the lethal odds from the Conjurer's Calling. So that one's rough. That one's a rough one to take. But Secret Rogue, we've seen it be pretty susceptible to having these rough games. I think that even though it boasts a high win rate, I can remember on multiple occasions times that it was reverse swept. Actually, I think there's been a lot of things that have been reverse swept so far in the season. Just depending on kind of the strategies. Bomb Warriors had its day. Demon Hunters had its day. Temple Mage is like the one deck that seems exempt from reverse sweeps, but I can even believe there was 1 or 2 of those. So not out of it yet. Just got to take it one game at a time.
That's right.
And
we have seen the Rogue struggle a lot against mages, so this is a good start. But if the Rogue ends up getting the win anyways, maybe it just wasn't Language Hacker series to win. Things like that Ice Barrier is, hard to account for, and maybe that moment where Language Hacker went for that heal again, like you said, can't really blame him. Does end up setting himself up where a randomly generated card could end up destroying it all, and it did. So very unfortunate for Language Hacker. Sometimes just not lucky, and that's the way card games work, TJ. But that being said, going to game 3, and part of it is that you're able to potentially still swing things into your favor if you're playing well, maximize your chances. And as much as Language Hacker is showing more flair and emotion, the one thing that does seem to still be an interesting trend is that despite him feeling that way, I still feel like Language Hacker doesn't really let tilt consume him. No. Which is cool, right? Like usually a lot of times you risk showing more emotions, but at the same time you end up putting yourself in a situation where you end up not being able to concentrate because you're just too wrapped up in your emotions. Emotions are great. They also can sometimes sabotage you, and it doesn't seem like Language Hacker lets that happen despite him being a lot more expressive these days.
Yeah, no matter how he's feeling or how the previous game went, it doesn't affect how clean he plays the next game, which is cool. Very cool. It's refreshing. Some players can get in their own head. We'll have said this a lot, but Hunter Ace, it just felt like he fell off a cliff as soon as he lost his confidence in his ability to win Hearthstone games, and I feel like that was one of the reasons why he got relegated. Because that kind of just affects your overall mentality. He even said that on multiple occasions, but Language Hacker going through the rhythms here. ETC gets Arcane Intellect. And an Edwin Van. Ooh.
Don't let the door hit you.
That's a big Edwin on turn 3.
The Brotherhood shall
It's not the biggest.
It's not the biggest.
6/6.
Manageable. Not comfortable, but still manageable. These extra cards drawn, though, definitely are a nice shot in the arm for ETC. Finds
Okay.
a couple
Ray
of
of
cards
Frost.
that he could potentially play for next turn. Language Hacker finds the Ray of Frost, though, to help stall out this Edwin.
I wonder if you take the 6 this turn and spend the time to spend them in on other things. I guess not. No reason to. Trying to find a fancy way to like really pull ahead on, like try and get ahead on board and not just deal with this Edwin delayed.
Oh, up to no good? Me too.
ATC's Rogue, though, seems to be firing all cylinders. This is like one of the cleaner Rogue openings we've seen today where, you know, puts a big threatening minion on board, but actually has meaningful follow-up and meaningful value generation. And these are the kinds of games that Mage really struggles to win against Rogue because they don't just deal with like these, you know, incremental minions. They want to go for these big swings, and you know, unless you have the power cards to be able to go for those big swings, like Sorcerer's Apprentice and the cheap spells to follow up, you're gonna feel like you spend each turn just trying to stall, but continuously taking more chip damage as the game goes along. And that's what this kind of game feels, where Language Hacker's playing the waiting game. But if he doesn't find Source Apprentice or a meaningful way to get back on the board within the next couple turns, it's just going to be too late.
Well, he is debating if he wants to save the discount from the Primordial Studies for the Raz. That gives him the ability to play the lab partner in Raz next turn guaranteed. Could even go as far as to play the more expensive ones. That way he can hold on to the cheaper one. But ETC just doing a pretty good job making sure that he keeps up in the resources. Kind of like preparing for the storm, so to speak, because he knows that pretty soon Language Hacker is going to start running away with the amount of resources that he could generate. But he just needs time.
Oh, it says explode.
Language Hacker goes for the expensive lab partner, kind of what we're thinking. Says, do your worst. And ETC finds Dragon's Horde, which activates his Vendetta. A pretty significant pickup here. Oh, Professor Slate. And Dark Pharaoh to Khan. Wait,
Wow.
what?
So
Khan is
I'm
nuts.
thinking Professor Slate because I got a couple of plagiarizes in hand, and Language Hacker has to play spells to get back onto the board.
Okay, I like it.
He also has an Arcane Missiles in hand, so if you play Plagiarize, you're very likely to have to play an Arcane Missiles next turn, right? Dark Pharaoh Khan feels too expensive
Right.
for what it does. You want to support this Edwin a little bit more this turn, I think, with maybe like a Titanic Lackey, and then you're now playing Dark Pharaoh Khan until next turn. All right, ETC disagrees.
Yeah,
I'm fine with this, though. I think both
counterpoint-
choices were good.
The counterpoint is that he has 2 lackeys in hand, and Dark Pharaoh is a lot of stats. Okay.
It's just a lot of mana as well.
Yeah, it's true. It is kind of expensive, and the tempo's not great. Alright, EC with a halfway play, a lackey, a secret, understands that 2 plagiarizers are hard to use consecutively, and Language Hacker has to account for it. Arc Intellect does not activate the secret, meaning that he knows that it is plagiarized. So now, how much does he want to go in, right? This is a big conundrum that ETC set up, which was you don't play into his plagiarize, you leave up a significant amount of power on board.
Yep.
Language Hacker's going to bite the bullet.
Yeah, next turn he's got a potential for a very powerful turn. With Sorcerer Apprentice, Shinvala, Evocation, and Mana Giant in hand, and Conjurer's Calling. If he picks up enough cheap spells, he can do it all. That might be difficult, actually. You don't want to get too greedy, but at the same time, he might be in a situation where getting greedy and going for like the absolute craziest play might be like his out, win the game.
How much is this worth to you?
You might be right, TJ. The Professor Slate might end up being something that is better just for like the tempo, because ETC might have been able to. He would have been able to kill. He would have been able to set up second plagiarize. This card ended up being really expensive and only has one lackey in hand now. So I do think that in hindsight, your theory is correct, and this is an opportunity that was created. It's a small opening. It's still not comfortable for Language Hacker, but it's an opportunity nonetheless.
These are. I just want to preface this by saying these are claps of encouragement for a pop-off turn.
Oh, it says explode.
Keep going, TJ. He needs your energy.
I don't know how long I can clap. Oh, all hit minions. That's good. Killed one. Let's go. Frostbolt, mirror image, 0 mana spells.
Oh, jeez, this is top-level commentary.
I mean, you remember how we used to cast Yogg-Saron? Not Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron, the actual Yogg-Saron. It happened so fast that we just yell out the spell names. Man, analyzing Hearthstone was simpler back in the day.
That's right.
You could just exclaim, whatever card name or hero name you came to your head, and you'd be spot on.
Alright, well, he's clearing off a significant portion of the board and wrapping it up with the secret and the giant. If he wants to, he might feel like the giant might be best saved, but I do agree with playing it here.
Nice turn. It's just now he cleared off the board, he developed the board, now it's time to just hope the Mana Giant sticks and get the Conjurer's Calling target. And honestly, he was in a position in that turn where he couldn't afford to be greedy with his Mana Giant. He can't afford to sit it back. It needs to pick up some damage or some value trades before you Conjurer's Calling it, or else, you're 100% reliant on charge/rush minions to be picked up from the Conjurer's Calling next turn. I'm surprised. Unless, can he kill the
How much is this worth to you?
Mana Giant with this? Surprised he didn't go for Wand
Thief.
Thief.
Potentially find a way to. No, it's unlikely.
He's running out of time. He doesn't have time to Secret Passage anymore.
Right. So I think it might just be Titanic Lackey set up secrets.
Oh man. I felt like he could have just muscled Language Hacker out of the game there with like a Secret Passage turn instead of developing these secrets.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm overestimating what his deck still has. I might be. Also, the Shadow Step on the Underbelly Fence didn't really do that much. Didn't allow him to push damage, didn't really allow him to kill a priority target. I would have liked to see a Shadow Step on the Wand Thief to try and find a spell to deal with this Mana Giant, considering Conjurer's Calling is the only way he's going to come back.
Agreed.
Language Hacker is very worried about Spellbender and Counterspell. So I'm not surprised to see this. Sees no Counterspell, and honestly just has to take the risk here.
Yeah.
You just trade over, make value trade down, and just Conjurer's Calling, and hope that it's not Spellbender. Like, you're at a point right now where I don't think there's another option. Oh my gosh, those are bad.
Some really bad 8-drops.
What in the world?
But it's not like he gave really good stuff over to ETC.
That's true.
All right, prep. Secret Passage time. Oh, he's going to prep the Arcane Intellect. I guess, Arcane Intellect is kind of like Secret Passage, but not really. Woo!
Ooh.
Bad spot. This all got out of hand from the moment you kind of identified he had an opportunity to keep his tempo up and slow down a little bit too much.
1 week turn is sometimes all it takes. That's one opening for Mage. Going all in on a questing adventure here doesn't feel particularly good either, because you know that at the very least it can be answered with the second half of the Conjurer's Calling that's in the hand. From Language Hacker.
Oh, he's going for the secret passage. Oh, is he trying to find a
What is he trying to-
Blackjack Stunner?
Yikes.
Oh, up to no good. Me too.
Well, that didn't really do much. And Language Hacker has 16 damage right now. But needs to kill off this questing adventurer. Since if he can't kill his opponent, he has to deal with the pressure coming the other way.
He also hasn't tested for face secrets, so it could be Vaporize, Ice Barrier, or Flame Ward. Which he has to think about that too. I think first things first, take the value trade and Conjurer's Calling to see what's in the box. You know, see exactly how much resources you need to spend. Oh!
Devolving missiles, wow.
The faithful shall be rewarded.
Alright, sees the Vaporize. Not much value at it whatsoever. And this devolving missiles is brutal. ETC definitely struggling right now, and it's looking like Mage is just going to start to complete the comeback here.
Oh man. There's an out for ETC still. 2-mana minion on board and 2 spots open. I've never seen it. Never seen it.
Doomsayer?
The Doomsayer. What a weird way for ETC to win this series it would be.
So many.
Like, and you
Just 2
you need to
chances.
plan for this too. You play the questing adventure first. If that's your only out, you go all in on it.
Laura
Alright.
Walker Cho gives another Conjurer's Calling over.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
One
He's all in
more
on this. I guess you don't play the
chance?
questing so you have the mana. Yep, never seen it.
Yeah.
Still never seen it. Language
doesn't
Hacker's still
exist.
alive in the series though.
Alright, well. We knew that the Mage could do it versus the Rogue, but definitely was a little bit more uncomfortable than preferred because the Rogue had a chance. And maybe in some people's eyes, ETC had that opportunity to potentially win that game. And may have given a little bit too much leeway over to Language Hacker. And in the end, that Dark Pharaoh ended up not doing anything anyways, given his line of play, because he immediately played a Lackey. He didn't find another Lackey generator for quite some time, versus he could have always found opportunities for Professor Slate. So a really good lesson for ETC here.
Yeah. Loved the opening from ETC. Consistent pressure, not getting too greedy with Edwin, stopping at 6/6, keeping up the value train. It's just like, Dark Pharaoh to Con choice was kind of the beginning, and then just the one turn where he dealt with the power turn from Language Hacker. You have to understand that situation, that's a desperate move from your opponent. You can't just try and build a board and hope it gets there. You need to try your hardest to pick apart as much as you can from that board, prioritize the Mana Giant, because Conjurer's Calling is one of the only ways that Language Hacker comes back from that point. So it felt like he didn't fully figure out what to do until too late. It seemed like he was mousing over Secret Passage, like maybe I can find something from here, but ultimately couldn't, and just went for put some power on board and hope Language Hacker can't pick things apart, which he could. And he kind of ran away with the game from there, despite pretty poor outcomes from Conjurer's Calling the first time around. Second time around didn't really matter much because he had already pretty much solidified the board and put ETC in a desperate situation. But Language Hacker's still in it. Demon Hunter definitely capable of taking win against Rogue.
Do.
Mirror matchup is just 50-50 all the way down, because I'm pretty sure these lists are 30 for 30 cards the same. The ETC is on coin. I don't think it's I guess it's still a big deal. I don't think it's as big of a deal as it once was, you know, because there was just less options of what to do. But Questing Adventure and with Cleave still exists, so as long as they do, the coin will still be very good in these types of rogue decks. You do
Yeah,
play
very
behind
much
curve,
so.
though.
I think the opening here for Pharaoh Cats having an impact on the 2-drops is a bigger deal, right? Does Underbelly Fence get activated? Do they have meaningful turn 2 development, or are they just daggering up? Language Hacker debating that right now. If he opens the Dragon's Horde versus the Pharaoh Cat, I think it's Pharaoh Cat every time, but I could be sometimes convinced that it isn't. Because end up finding the Card 2 Defender, it's not really like a super high impact card right now, but it can be later.
Yeah, can be later. You're really hoping for a class card in that situation because, you know, in this type of example, Language Hacker would just be able to roll into Underbelly Fence, you know, have complete control over the board, and have options moving forward. You know, that's the debate that you talked about of whether or not the Dragon's Horde or Pharaoh Cat, but opting for board presence and roping out like that could mean a few things for Language Hacker. Backstab being the primary one, also him picking up a class card and Vendetta. But sometimes he could just be roping just to try and think through his next few turns, so you can't read too much into those types of things.
Yeah, that's fair.
Playing it slow.
Playing it very slow, which is interesting to me. I kind of thought the Temple Berserker was fine to go for here, but ends up wanting to just prioritize the dagger. Okay. I guess in his mind, he has a reactive hand. He's got backstab. He's got underbelly fence. So maybe he's just going to take the reactive stance for a little bit of time, and then maybe on Language Hacker's side, he's gonna he wants to see Language Hacker perhaps extend onto the board before he can play his reactive cards. So he's like, oh yeah, if I just like Hero Power, he's going to play something, and then I could go for an underbelly bench swing turn.
Ugh. This turn is gross.
Yeah, it looks like Dragon's Horde to start things off, or Questing Adventure, and neither seem particularly very strong. He ends up going for the Questing Adventure because it's the highest upside, but yeah, it's
if you play
looking
Dragon's Horde,
pretty ugly.
Shut off your combo activator for Evil Miscreant next turn.
Yeah, that's true.
Because of the pause, you're not 100% sure, but you're pretty confident that a Backstabber Vendetta exists on the other side. So this Questing Adventure has very little chance of surviving. See, now this one,
it's gotta
that's
be
tough.
Professor Slate this time, right?
I think it's my... Okay, never mind.
How much is this worth to you?
Mind Flayer Cars, except Mind Flayer Cars I think is too susceptible to Blackjack Center. Yeah, I think Professor Slate is the choice again. It's just so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh,
I
man,
think
Lurker
Mind
Blow.
Flayer is too situational. Lurker Below, okay, interesting.
Lurker Blow is also sick. These are some pretty sick legendaries.
So I guess from here, do you want to use your Professor Slate immediately? I don't think so.
He's got kind of a whole lot of nothing in hand, which is the unfortunate thing. He's got a lot of pieces, but nothing to really tie it all together, like an Edward Van Cleef for Questing Adventure. So yeah, I mean, Professor Slate, I don't think you want to get baited into holding onto that forever. And this is a good amount of value, right? Turns Backstab into 4 damage, which is pretty huge. Yeah,
All right,
Russell's tempo back on the board again.
Fair
So,
enough.
Looking at the secret spread here, both players are just playing the
How much is this
double
worth
dirty
to you?
tricks plagiarize. I think because he has a resource advantage, he can afford to play a little bit slow and not test too much into. Ugh.
Wow, that's pretty unfortunate.
Yikes!
Scarab is not going to do anything. Plagiarize finds another underbelly fence, but no activator for it.
Woo!
Jandis Barab up top.
Woo!
Totem Goliath making another cameo today.
And Mazaki. These are
Mr.
some-
Mozaki.
These are some primo 5 drops.
Yeah, and then you can clear it off. Everything looking okay so far for ETC, and now Language Hacker has to figure out what he wants to do here.
Wait, did he do the good thing against Lurker Below, or did he do the bad thing against Lurker Below? I mean, you never play around Lurker Below, right?
I don't think I've ever played around that card in my life.
So many options.
Even against Shaman? Like, if you picked Mazaki...
What's a Shaman?
Oh, Dan. It's a mythical beast. They used to roam the lands about 3 years ago before they became endangered. They used to be everywhere.
I don't know. I've never seen a Shaman. Language Hacker has to do something to the board, though. There's a lot of pressure still coming his way, so can still kill off some stuff with Lurker. Could also just try to use Underbelly Fence. Kind of does something similar. Kobold Lackey. Good pickups. Totems. Rise up.
Oh, setting up for the Lurker Below. ETC has not a huge way to capitalize on spell damage, but like that has to be a little scary, right? Like Mazaki with Rogue with all these cheap spells, plus Wand Thief. Like, what if he just like rips a fireball off a Wand Thief here? Because this Mazaki's at +4 spell damage now, +5 with the Totem of Wrath.
Okay. And now he's got a big Van Cleef. Ready to go. No way to use his Vendetta right now. Colossus of the Moon.
He got it at the end of the last game too, right before we lost. Oh my god.
Oh, that Edwin.
It's big. And
I think
Language
ETC
Hacker needs to
really
do a lot of stuff
debating
next
if he
turn.
wants to trade at all here. I like at least putting him down to 12, right? So that ooh, trades. All right.
I've watched ETC long enough at Grandmaster to know that he loves trading with Rogue. It's a hobby of his.
Oh, wow.
So needs
then
a secret
what do
off
you
of this
do?
Ethereal Lackey.
Okay. Yes, Ethereal Lackey removal spell. Sap!
Oh!
He also had the chance of hitting a secret.
Yeah.
Sap works, though.
That works.
Ooh, Natalie Celine's a little bit too much. Chenvala is interesting, too, but his hand's actually shaping up to be fairly expensive at this point.
How does Celine could deal with the Edwin that he replays next turn? There you go. Found it. The health total is what I'm worried about, though. Like, he needs a like point of stabilization right now. He's got Lurker Blow and Cartoon Defender. It feels like he's close.
Okay, well. ETC not going to be stopped in terms of his development just yet. He can replay this Edwin right now, but he doesn't have any activators for this Vendetta with his Underbelly Fence. Still a really inconvenient thing for him at the moment. I think he's prioritizing Cartoon Defender. Interesting. I find that interesting because I feel like that's one of the lower tempo plays that he has available to him.
It is. Definitely is. Funnily enough, ETC has played around Lurker Below every turn.
I wonder.
Like, perfectly. Makes me believe he's been practicing against Briarthorn's Penflinger Quest Shaman.
Alright, well, Lurker Below should still be good enough to eliminate a decent amount of his board.
I mean, still 7 power being represented.
Right.
Let's look at the deck here. He's got 2 Wand Thieves left. And pretty much anything that deals a single point of direct damage is enough, because this Mizaki...
Yeah, Arcane Missiles should be lethal.
By a lot. First says Mizaki's at like +5 spell damage. +6. Let's see. Oh, it's at +5.
+5.
Now it's at +6.
And he's just now using Vendetta for tempo. And ETC is getting close just to killing him, right? Regardless of anything that Language Hacker does. The Plagiarize only gives him that Vendetta right back. He does have the... Oh, yeah, and that Plagiarize. And so it's like one of these things where they can keep tossing cards back to each other. Language Hacker has to figure out how he wants to do this, because if he plays Vendetta, he's giving Vendetta right back. But he can't be too passive here. He needs to find a way to be defensive. And he has a secret to activate the Blackjack Stunner, and he has a Vendetta. But again, if he uses that, he's giving it back to ETC. This is very tricky.
Yeah. Because he needs his Cartoon Defender to stick, right? Or else I feel like he doesn't have a chance in this game. But in order for it to stick, he needs to not Blackjack Stunner and Secret this turn. So it's just putting him in an incredibly awkward position. I mean, it might just be as simple as Cartoon Defender this turn, and just hope he doesn't have it.
Choose soon.
Like, hope he doesn't have the way to push through.
I mean, it's tricky. Right now, it's Language Hacker's playoffs hopes on the line. Vendetta, Cartoon Defender. Plagiarize back, Blackjack Stunner. Knows that, again, it can be tossed back and forth, and there's this weird thing where both players are able to keep chaining this over and over and be very generous with each other.
Oh my gosh.
I think part of the reason why he feels okay about giving Vendetta, by the way, is he sees that ETC played from the hand for 4.
Yeah.
I still think there's merit to what you talked about, which was the Secret Passage play, but it is starting to get a little concerning, which is long-term. How is ETC going to deal these last bits of damage?
Keep smacking him with the dagger. At this point, I'm also starting to worry about, like, Alex Straza, because there's a random dragon in hand from the Draconic Lackey. That's kind of just sitting there. Or Deathwing. I guess Deathwing, you're not really too worried about Deathwing because he's just so low at this point.
Choose
But
suit.
I guess ETC just does the same thing back? I don't know. Oh, wow. This is such a weak tempo play. And there's a play dries up. He's giving him another Cartoon Defender. I guess this is fine because ETC
So
has
he's trying to play
Secret
the
plus Blackjack
stickiest
Center.
board possible. He's trying to play the stickiest board possible, then use the Blackjack Center to push for lethal.
Yeah,
I wonder.
that makes sense.
The void
But
is
Language Hacker knows it's there, so it's not a sneaky lethal. Language Hacker played those cards and gave them to him via the play dries.
Yeah, good point. Not really fooling anybody.
At a certain point, ETC is going to have to pull the trigger and dig for lethal, I think, with this Wand Thief, because the board is slowly starting to get away from him.
It's already gotten away from him. He's at 30 life, but he's staring at 13 damage. Is he gonna drop this Colossus of the...
Nah.
Is the Colossus just like the swag play? Language Hacker can't deal with it easily. I guess he could trade his Cartoon to heal. No, but he knows about another Cartoon Defender, right? Wait, but that's
Knows about-
okay because he could kill the other one. Language Hacker heals 10, and then push. TJ
I'm not
was
sure
the
about that one.
play Colossus of the Moon.
Why don't you just do this and make 2 Colossus of the Moons, essentially?
The Brotherhood shall contain.
With questing
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
Edwin Van Cleef.
That's totally fair. And
That's
the
a Blackjack
plagiarize
Center
to make it
used.
trigger. So if you just play Cartoon Defender here,
Then that's all ETC gets to play the next turn, and he still can't push enough damage through. This is tense. I thought Language
Yeah,
Hacker was going to die like 5 minutes ago.
wow, Language Hacker deep in the tank.
So he gave him a Vendetta. So let's say he goes Cartoon Defender, trades over the Edwin, and then Dagger trades with the Temple Berserker over the Blackjack Stunner. And he dies to Vendetta plus Vendetta Dagger up. Yeah, he's got to dig
Oh wow.
here. He's got to dig.
Going for 2 spells. Finds a Potion of Illusion! That's a 1/1 Natalie Celine that can destroy any minion.
Ooh!
What?
That's sick!
That is ridiculous.
That is so good!
Okay, but ETC gets Natalie Celine
My hand
and
is too
Potion.
full.
Loses the Evil Miscreant, which is another opportunity for an out. ETC has burned both of his Miscreants. Both have the opportunity to generate direct damage.
Do you Onyx plus Prep here and dig?
Yeah.
There's so many lethal
Yes.
outs. Deadly Poison, Sinister Strike, Eviscerate,
Many options.
Head crack.
Head Crack.
I like it. And he has ways to copy it too with the Potion of Illusion. Finds an
Eviscerate!
Eviscerate! And that's going to do it. ETC advances to the lower bracket finals, eliminating Language Hacker from Season 2 and keeps the dream alive. He said at the beginning of the season he wanted to do the best and make a deep run for playoffs. He found an opportunity to do so. He said he was kind of nervous going into today, but ETC's able to do it, and now he's challenging No Hands Gamer for an opportunity to go to the final spot on Championship Sunday.
Yeah, and you got to feel for Language Hacker in that one. Over the past 2 series, there have been some spots where he's just had some bad beats, right? Especially in that one, getting poor outcomes from a couple of these effects, and it's rough when you come in with 2 chances and you end up losing to the player that came in with only 1 chance. But I think he found a lot of good spots there, especially that Onyx Mage Scribe play at the end. You map through everything that you gave your opponent and how it works with the trades. It's not as simple as just trying to play Cartoon Defender because you lose on the board, right? And so trying to find what your outs are in that situation is a very difficult thing to do. And there's a world where ETC whiffs that turn. And because he searched so desperately for damage at the very end, maybe you take control of the